Oh boy! Nachos Bill Grande!
Before the guide, I want to address a few things. Firstly, as 24 of you have seen, I accidentally uploaded a public YouTube livestream. If you want to know how this happens, you can pause and read this Discord comment here. Secondly, I'm collaborating with up-and-coming Overwatch creator Good Guy Griffo, in which I'll be covering his hog gameplay throughout the entire guide. His links are down below. Thirdly, as mentioned before, I'll be conducting a poll on my YouTube community tab as soon as I hit 1k on whether you want me to use my own voice or the TTS bot. Other than that, stay tuned for my Genji guide coming out next week, alongside my 1k special that I have planned in a few days. Without further ado, here's the hog guide.
Hog's primary fire, the Scrappy Boi, makes Hog either shoot short-range blasts of shrapnel, or a shrapnel ball that detonates farther away. They both deal up to 150 damage per shot, with the rate of fire at one shot every 0.7 seconds, alongside an ammo capacity of 6, and a projectile speed of 80 meters per second. With Hog's secondary fire, in pre-detonation, the ball of shrapnel deals 50 damage, detonating at exactly 8 meters. The experimental changes will also increase the maximum damage dealt from 150 to 175 by increasing individual pellet damage, which I will talk about later on. Starting off with a bit of tech. Firstly, you can animation cancel your reload by half a second by using your breather as soon as the scrap is loaded into the gun. Secondly, you can cancel your reload in the same manner with Hog's hook, alongside his melee. Thirdly, you can end the recovery time after Hog fires his scrap gun by using either of his abilities, which we'll reference later on Hog's hook section of the guide. In terms of usage for Hog's scrap gun, there's not much either than to use your alternate fire to break shields. In fact, Hog on Live can break an Orisa shield in 4 shots if all his pellets land, and on Experimental, he can break the nerfed Sigma shield in 4 shots due to the increased damage on his scrap gun. For his primary fire, most Hogs often struggle dealing decent damage in close range, especially against mobile and armored targets. In this clip here, Griffo undershoots his shot against this Tracer, and in a desperate attempt to redeem the missed damage, his second shot is after the Tracer blinks, which will be punishing especially with the increased recovery time. Moreover, Griffo now overshoots his hook against the Tracer as she escapes through the doorway. In order to fix the dominoes effect of endless mistakes, a slightly higher sensitivity or the ability to confidently flick would prevent undershooting, which would then prevent overshooting if you miss your first shot. Lastly, as the detonation distance for Hog's secondary fire is 8 meters, the ideal one-shot distance for Hog with his alternate fire is 8.5 to 10 meters. Over time, you will become more comfortable with this distance, being capable of landing these satisfying one-shots without having to use hook. Hog's first ability, the hook, line and sinker, makes Hog throw a chain up to 20 meters, pulling any target caught towards him. It also deals 30 damage, with a projectile speed of 40 meters per second, and a cooldown of 8 seconds. Using the tech mentioned prior of eliminating Hog's recovery time when shooting, you can perform a one-shot dealing immense amounts of damage. Firstly, use your alternate fire. Secondly, walk forward to make sure that all your pellets from the follow-up shots land. Thirdly, throw and land your hook. Fourthly, keep walking forward despite the movement penalty. Fifthly, land your primary fire plus melee combo. This can deal upwards of 500 damage depending on how many pellets hit the head and body, especially if the experimental changes go through to live. However, this will most likely deal 250 to 300 damage due to fall off and missed pellets. The reason why you ideally want to walk forward is so that you are in range to land the melee, as well as increasing the probability that more of your pellets hit your target due to how quickly Hog's spread increases. Despite the experimental Hog buffs, it is still important to keep in mind in order to reliably hit your one-shots on targets with slender hitboxes, or targets that are being healed, which nullifies the damage dealt by your hook. Moreover, an extremely important aspect overlooked by many guides is crosshair placement after hooking a target. As you can see here, Griffo hooks the Ash without pre-firing, which is his first mistake. However, the more overlooked mistake is that his crosshair is not placed on Ash's upper body, meaning that half the pellets don't hit, which makes the Ash survive. You can also turn the camera when you've hooked an enemy to pull enemies off the map, as your Overwatch elaborates here.
Anytime you hook a target in turn, there's about a 45-degree turn you're allowed to make to reposition the target, so utilize that to pull them closer to the team and farther away from their team. This is only going to amount to a meter or two of distance, but trust me, it does add up, and even if it doesn't come into effect every time, at the very least you're turning your head hitbox away from the enemy team, making you harder to shoot, and eventually it will pan out for you. It's just a good habit to get into.
In terms of wider usage, hook is primarily used to punish bad or unnecessarily aggressive positioning. hence why Hog is so powerful in the lower ranks, as a lot of careless mistakes about where you position yourself in the teamfight occur. Often these mistakes entail a Bridget wasting Bash, a Moira wasting Fade, or a Zarya pushing too far to gain energy from her bubble. Hook can also be used to threaten long, straight lines of sight, flanks, rooms, and sections of the map. I'll get onto this later on the positioning and playstyle section, where narrow and tight rooms on certain maps should give you a favorable matchup for playing on a flank to deny a Doom or a Tracer access to your backline. Hooks can also be used to disrupt ultimates such as Blossom or Barrage, which can be a major win condition for the enemy team, especially considering that if they nano boost these ultimates, you can deny the effect of 2 ultimates with a single cooldown. Lastly, make sure you have enough ammo to follow up on your hook. There's no point hooking a Tracer after she recalls just for you to have no ammo left. This is especially important after the patch notes where your ammo count is reverted from 5 to 6. Hence you have to be more aware of how much ammo you use, especially when performing the full hook combo, consuming twice the amount of ammo you'd normally consume by just hooking and shooting. Hog's second ability, Second Transcendence, makes Hog restore up to 300 health in 1 second, with 2 total seconds of animation. A 50% damage reduction is also applied within this time, and Hog's breather is on an 8-second cooldown. Firstly, aside from the reload animation cancel, Hog's breather applies the 50% damage reduction as soon as the ability is activated, and not during the 1 second duration. This means that in order to optimize the health gained after a mass amount of burst damage, you need to activate breather a few frames before you take that damage. A perfect example would be in Flux or when a diva uses her bomb. Secondly, if you take a bit of poke damage whilst posturing, don't be afraid to heal that damage up for additional ult charge, just as long as you have your breather before the teamfight starts. This is similar to an Orisa pre-shielding 10 seconds before the engagement, as she'll have her shield off cooldown by the time the engagement occurs. Thirdly, looking at the wider usage of Hog's breather, you'll mostly be using it defensively to prevent mass amounts of damage from cooldowns such as Diva's micro missiles, and to use it to escape tight situations after flanking. Fourthly, whilst less viable nowadays, you can use Hog's breather to face tank damage to save shield resource, or to divert resources away from your teammates into you, such as Zen's Discord or Ash's Dynamite. Lastly, save your breather against team wiping ultimates such as Nano Bleed, Flux, or Grav in order to increase your survivability, alongside forcing out stuns that can interrupt your breather such as Briggs Bash or Ana's Sleep by utilizing your hook or scrap gun. Hog's ultimate, the Terminator, makes Hog lob an advanced mechanical device onto his scrap gun, cranking out a wide stream of shrapnel at 128 pellets a second. This decreases Hog's movement speed by 25%, with Hog dealing 7 damage per pellet. Whole Hog also takes 0.5 seconds to cast, with a 5.5 second duration. Starting off with tech. Firstly, you can cancel your hook with Whole Hog. This is most useful for scenarios where you miss the hook and need to get immediate value from your Whole Hog as the enemy team is playing overtly aggressive. Secondly, you can cancel your breather with Whole Hog. This has a similar line of reasoning to the prior tip, but to also allow yourself to heal up an extra 200 or so health and not a full 300 to save you some time whilst adding a decent amount of survivability. Thirdly, you can cancel the scrap gun recovery time by using Whole Hog straight after, which is best utilized when hooking in a tank to deal as much damage as possible in the shortest amount of time. With usage, you can use Whole Hog against Nano Blade to utilize the knockback to prevent any slashes. This will also force his deflect and focus on you, which should be his lowest priority due to your health pool and individual sustain. As implied prior, you want to be using Whole Hog when the enemy team commits to the engagement aggressively. Examples can be against an aggressive sound barrier, an aggressive rally or coalescence, or an echo using her duplication. This will relay a great deal of pressure, which I will shortly refer to later on. You can also use it to deal mass amounts of damage, either to shields, or to juggle an enemy in a corner. Make sure that your team pushes aggressively to keep the advantage, and to not allow the enemy team to regain any shield resource. Additionally, you can displace enemies with Whole Hog to either make them easier to punish by placing them in bad positions, or to utilize the immense knockback to take an enemy out of their effective range. Lastly, keep in mind that Whole Hog refills your ammo capacity, meaning that you should unleash all your shots before using Whole Hog, using the scrap gun animation tip mentioned prior to get an extra free shot before using your ult. You can also use both your abilities prior to Whole Hog as they should come off cooldown by the time Whole Hog is finished. Onto the penultimate section of this guide, positioning and playstyle. Unlike characters such as Sigma, Hog isn't a character whose playstyle depends upon their team composition, as he is a two-dimensional character. One playstyle is to go for shield break, and the other is go for flanks and off angles. Speaking about the former, if the enemy team are running damage dealers that are heavily reliant on shields, such as McCree, Soldier or even Ashe, a viable playstyle is to go for shield break in order to punish the exposed squishy targets. However, if you or the enemy team are running a team comp that's not heavily reliant on shield break, such as Hack Fist, you may want to do the latter. This is simply rolling out on off angles and flanks in order to utilize your hook to threaten angles and parts of the map. Referring to good guy Griffo, he rolls out on the right side of Nepal's Sanctum with his team. Instead, due to his team's overall sustain, he should have rolled out on the opposite side to deny the Tracer an opportunity to dive his backline with the Ashe. And as you can see, even though the Tracer doesn't end up confirming any kills, she draws attention and healing resources away from the front line. If Griffo rolled out to the left, he could have punished the Tracer, relaying stress and gifting map control. Lastly, in reference to the anatomy of a team fight, here's Jayne explaining why Hog should primarily be performing soft resets in coordination with his team.
This is basically the spawn, and then you've exited the spawn, and this is a rollout, and then this is the posture phase. And in the posture phase, you're doing two things. You're positioning and you're poking. And then what transitions from the posture phase into the engagement is an opportunity. Now, this opportunity can be many things. This opportunity can be somebody being out of position and you recognizing that. It can be somebody using a cooldown and you recognizing that. It can be somebody using an ultimate. And these opportunities you want to create through your positioning and your poking or during the posture phase. And this engage happens when you've killed everyone. And then winning happens. It is like the anatomy of a team fight. But then what happens is that once you've gotten into an engagement, but you are no longer at the point where you can kill people, you need to go back to posturing. And this is called a soft reset. If you go back to the posture phase, this is a soft. If you go back to the start, which means this either happens because of a team kill on you, not them, or where the opponent would have an advantage in a posture phase, you don't want a soft. You want a hard reset if the opponent would have the advantage here. But the way you were, and especially on characters like Roadhog, these are characters that in the poking phase and the positioning phase, and this includes characters like Widowmaker and whatnot, can actually jump right to the killing and right to the winning. But a sustained engagement is not in your favor because you were 2 down. So in this circumstance, instead of like continuing to fight and try and fight at a disadvantage, you could reset while still applying pressure to the opponent during the posture phase, threaten with hooks, and potentially get DMAX or kills or whatnot with your hook. But you stayed fighting, you used your whole hog, and then you got killed. So not only did you stay engaged, but you wasted an ultimate, and now you're going to need a hard reset.
As usual, ending off with Frontline Synergies Hog Ball. This comp relies on individual sustainability and playing spread apart, hence why brawl comps will struggle to find value, alongside decent high ground and low ground control, with plenty of stuns and crowd control which adds to their disruption. However, isolating a single target will be this main comp's weakness. Hog Winston. This comp does not do much for Winston, as he has much less survivability compared to Ball. His primal may benefit you by booping enemies in bad positions that you can punish. However, he will be stuck posturing around tanks. Winston's shield also provides some cover, but with no damage mitigation or avoidance, a Reaper will easily pick apart both tanks. Hog Orisa. This duo is very outdated due to how brittle Orisa's shield is, and considering that her halt's radius may be getting nerfed, this will completely nullify the pull hook combo. However, as long as your Orisa manages her defensive cooldowns well to apply objective pressure, you should feel free to flank and relay pressure off of her by taking these angles. Hog Reinhardt. This duo is very aggressive, and serves the primary purpose to deny as much short-range aggression onto your Reinhardt as possible by Hog's scrap gun. This is also more of a counter pick than anything else, considering that Zarya is a more efficient pick in case your team lacks shield break or pick potential. Hog Sigma. This duo will definitely be a sleeper in ladder due to Sigma having Hog's pick potential, but added defensive utility as well. If your Sigma plays overtly aggressive, however, you may want to either play more passive to deter any aggression, or to swap to another hero such as Reinhardt or Orisa. Hog Diva. This duo provides some damage mitigation and coverage of the low ground and high ground. However, both these characters are prone to taking unnecessary damage, alongside Sigma being the better pick simply because he has more types of utility, blurring the lines of main tank and off tank. Hog Zarya. Whilst this isn't the worst synergy for Hog, it may be for Zarya. This duo offers a lack of cover, bubbles that easily burst as a result of that, and whilst you can combo whole Hog with Grav, Zarya may just be too fragile of an off tank to allow you to play an aggressive, flanking style of Hog. Well, that's it for the guide. If you enjoyed, don't forget to like, subscribe and comment. If this video also helped to raise your IQ, be sure to share it with your friends to also raise theirs. Until next time.
Fuck you,
Big boy with that big brew. Big boy how I come through. Big boy with that brand new, cause I'm killing it.